Earlier on, we were talking about pressures on defence spending, and perhaps too often we talk about the problems and not the solutions. Well, this week, one of Britain's top fighter pilots, who now works a lot in the United States, came into the studio to discuss his radical new system for training top-level pilots, something that costs a lot of money. He's using augmented reality so that a pilot in a real plane looks around a real sky and sees, as it were, pretend enemy jets and pretend missiles coming towards him. It's all a bit Top Gun. And when I met Daniel Robinson, who's founder of the technology company Red 6, I realised that wasn't a complete coincidence. I started by asking him a rather simple question. How hard are these jets to fly?
It's interesting. It's a paradox because the airplanes are actually really quite simple to fly when you get to that level, because the idea is that you don't spend much of your brain power thinking about flying. At that point, flying is kind of like breathing for us. And the airplanes are so advanced and sophisticated. Actually, flying them is quite straightforward. The trick is operating them because of the sensors and the multitude of information that's coming into that airplane in particular. The demands on the human brain, particularly under high Gs, are enormous.
And so you're constantly looking for threats. You're looking for what's going to happen in the landscape, what's around you in the air, and you're thinking about that the whole time.
Yes, that's right. And there are so many sensors on those airplanes. The real shift it made was taking multiple data sources and fusing it into one common picture.
You're in these planes, and one of the issues, I guess, is when you're training pilots, it's quite dangerous, because if you're really going to understand the systems, you're understanding what's coming towards you, it gets scary, it gets dangerous.
Yeah, you're operating at tremendously high speeds in a three-dimensional environment under huge G-forces, and accidents happen in training for sure. I don't think there's a pilot alive that has not lost a friend or a colleague, and certainly I have.
So you have this great new product, a sort of augmented reality training system. The motivation for that, is it safety? Is it economics? When did you get the idea? And
It's a number of factors. When I was flying Tornadoes for the RAF, we had a lack of training. In very simple terms, every time a fighter pilot goes up to fly and train, we need someone to fly and train against, and that's a multi-billion-dollar a year problem in the US. When I moved to the United States to fly F-22s, I realized that it was just the same over there as well, and this is the biggest, obviously, superpower in the world. And it's compounded by a number of problems that are common to most NATO countries. We are tremendously short of fighter pilots. We're about 1,600 to 1,700 pilots short in the United States alone. It's very expensive to provide training. We don't have the assets that we used to in the United States. Between Gulf War I and now, we've gone from about 134 combat squadrons down to about 57. But even if we did, the geopolitical landscape has changed, and now we pivot away from a focus on counterinsurgency warfare in the Middle East to facing peer adversaries, namely China, of course. And with peer adversaries, we have the rise of sophisticated technology that becomes increasingly difficult to train against. So even if we could fill the supply-demand problem, it's becoming increasingly difficult to train against relevant threats.
It's a real technology race between Russia and China and the United States.
That is absolutely the case, yeah.
So, again, for people listening to this, actually what happens with your technology? A pilot gets into a slightly strange-looking aircraft and takes off.
Right. So the system we built, the core breakthrough in the technology was making augmented reality work outside. And the distinction between augmented reality and virtual reality is virtual, I put a headset on, I'm in an entirely virtual world. Augmented reality is a more nuanced problem because we take synthetic entities and we put them into the real world around us. So to directly answer the question, a pilot will get into an airplane with a custom optical augmented reality solution into a headset. They will take off, they will go up into the sky, they will drop down into the optical system, and they will look out and they will see the real world around them. But into the real world now, we can place synthetic threats through augmented reality.
You put Chinese jets and missiles coming at them that they have to dodge.
Exactly that, yes.
And so give me a few examples of the kind of things you'll be doing with this headset on in a real plane that is very, very difficult to do without this system.
Yeah, well, I'll give you two really, really good examples. One is air-to-air refueling, for example. Obviously, we go as fighter pilots to gas stations in the sky. And the first time you go to air-to-air refuel for real is the first time you go to air to refuel for real. And obviously, there's complexity and danger involved in that. Well, now I can do that synthetically. every day of the week and show the kind of pictures that we'd expect to see the first time we go to a tanker. We can get operators now really experienced in a risk-free environment. That's one example. Another example is the ability to train against modern threats and dogfights, like scenes from Top Gun. You remember the training scenes in Top Gun?
I do. Yeah.
So akin to that, now we could pick the most advanced threat in the world, and let's assume we have a certain intelligence base on how that airplane performs. Then the beauty of this is it's simply code. And if you load that code into an AI algorithm, you can now fly a real airplane, and you're looking out of the window at something that doesn't exist, that's thinking for itself and flying against you.
So you got a Russian or a Chinese jet alongside you trying to take you down, and it is behaving as if there was a pilot inside it and responding to what you're doing as well.
Absolutely correct, and it's incredibly realistic.
So this is a huge advance in training. Has it been bought by anybody? Have you got support from the big aircraft manufacturers?
Yeah, so we're at a very exciting inflection point in the company right now. We've signed partnerships with Boeing, with BAE Systems, with Lockheed Martin and KAI to integrate now into the next generation of fighter trainers. So you will see it in Hawk, the T-7, the TA-50. And we're also working directly with the customer now, with the United States Air Force. As we speak, we are currently integrating into their current jet trainer, the T-38 in the US.
So you're with the USAF. What about the RAF?
We're in conversations right now with the RAF, and of course there's an interdependency between the RAF and BAE Systems over here in the UK. But it will come as no surprise that there's the struggle that the RAF are experiencing right now in terms of production of pilots, namely because of the problems with the Hawk fleet. So we think we can add a tremendous amount of value to help solve problems over here.
So you speed up training and you make training more effective. Would it answer, for instance, the kind of problem that we've had in the West about training Ukrainian pilots? Takes a very, very long time indeed at the moment.
Yeah, there's an age-old adage is to get a 3-year experienced fighter pilot takes 3 years. And this offers a number of value propositions. You can train to a higher standard much faster than traditionally we're capable of doing at a fraction of the cost in a much safer environment. And that's applicable not just to the NATO countries that we're in, but any allied nations around the world that we may be inclined to help train.
Daniel Robinson, thank you very much for talking to me.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.